Hi everyone, I'm Maddy Proud. I'm the co-captain of the New South Wales Swifts. I'm a member of the Australian Netball Diamonds team, and I'm also the author of Grace on the Court and Grace Back on Court. So Grace on the Court is about Grace Parker, 13-year-old Grace Parker, who's starting her first year of high school. It takes us through the transition from primary school to high school, her trying out for the A-grade netball team, the new friendships that she makes, the maybe trouble she has with other friendships at school, her first experience with a little bit of a love interest. There's also the introduction of a boy band, Friday at 5, and also her brother's band, which is called the Kings of Linwood. So follows kind of all the sagas that go on in a 13-year-old girl's life, all while trying to be the best netballer that she can be. The inspiration for Grace on the Court, the reason I wrote it was that growing up I loved playing netball and I also loved reading, but I found that there was a bit of a gap in the market for books about sport for young girls. I'd read a fair few series that were about boys playing AFL or girls doing other things, but never really about playing sport, and I sort of thought, why not write something that I would have liked to have read when I was this age? And I also think that starting high school and those sort of early teen years are a pretty pivotal time in a young girl's life, and I think that for me, sport was what helped me through a lot of that time and kind of made me the person that I am today and taught me a lot of skills that I have now been able to take into my life. And obviously reading is an integral part of everyday life, so I sort of thought, why not put those two things together? And if I can sort of encourage one girl that likes reading but's never played netball to pick up a netball, and then on the flip side, if I can make a girl that likes to play netball but doesn't like reading pick up a book, then I've done my job. So hopefully you guys enjoy the story, and there's also Grace Back on Court that will come after this one as well. Grace on the Court by Maddy Proud. Chapter 1. Go Aussies! Grace Parker yelled at the top of her lungs. She gazed around the packed stadium, taking in the sea of yellow and green. The Australian Diamonds were battling their arch rivals, the New Zealand Silver Ferns. It had been a nail-biter of a match. The Diamonds were down by 1 goal with only a few minutes left in the final quarter. The Silver Ferns had possession of the ball and were passing it around carefully. The Diamonds needed to act fast to stop the Ferns from scoring and gaining a 2-goal lead. On the edge of the circle, the Silver Ferns' wing attack released the ball, but just as the goal shooter moved to catch it, the Australian goal defence came flying in from the other side of the goal circle, tipping the ball just before it went to the shooter's hands and grabbing possession of it in the air. The crowd erupted as the Diamonds worked the ball down the court and scored. The Aussie goal defence's turnover had kept the Diamonds' hopes alive. The scores were now even. "This could be you one day," Mia Caminetti whispered in her best friend's ear. "Yeah, right," replied Grace, rolling her eyes at Mia. Grace loved netball, and she was pretty good at it. She'd even been captain of her Year 7 team. She had always dreamt of playing for the Diamonds, but she knew it was incredibly tough to get selected. Thousands of girls tried out to represent their state, let alone their country. And Grace was only 13. She hadn't even tried out for a high school team yet. But still, maybe one day. "Excuse me," a woman carrying a large tray of drinks pushed roughly past Grace and Mia. "I say excuse me if you're just going to barge through anyway," Grace thought to herself, but she tucked her legs in and smiled politely. Mia glared at the woman's back and stuck her tongue out. "What a cow!" "Mia!" "Oh, don't tell me you weren't thinking the same thing," grumbled Mia. Grace just rolled her eyes. She was used to Mia's bluntness, and Mia was used to what she called Grace's good girl image. The saying opposites attract definitely applied to Grace and Mia. Their personalities balanced each other out, with Grace the angel to Mia's devil. In looks, the two friends were polar opposites too. Grace was tall, with long brown hair and lots of freckles from all her time she spent playing netball in the sun, whereas Mia was short, with jet black hair and a fiery personality. Grace and her twin brother Angus had known Mia nearly their entire life. They had attended the same childcare centre, and their parents had become close friends. While Mia and Angus were no longer quite as close, the two girls had been inseparable all through primary school, and since the age of 6 they had shared love of netball too. "Shh, stop fidgeting, girls," said Grace's mum. "There's only 2 minutes to go." Grace didn't need to be reminded twice. Any mistake was costly at this point and would lose them the game. She sat forward in her seat, anxiously. The Australians took the centre pass and scored quickly, not wasting any time. The Diamonds needed a turnover to take control of the game. The New Zealand wing attack had possession of the ball and stepped forwards to feed into her team's star goal shooter, who hadn't missed a shot all game. The Australian goalkeeper read the play perfectly and lunged in front of the shooter. Grace and Mia gasped in appreciation. It was one of the most impressive intercepts of the game. The Australians didn't waste the opportunity and within seconds led by 2 goals. Grace glanced up at the timer. "Only 10 seconds left. I think we've got it," she hugged Mia. The whistle blew and the crowd erupted. Grace and Mia leapt to their feet, cheering and stamping. What a great game, Grace's mum yelled over the crowd. The best, so close, Grace replied. Thanks for bringing us, Mum. It was Grace's mum who had introduced Grace and Mia to netball, dragging them along to her social games when they were younger. Kathy Parker had played in the district team as a teenager and was still a very skillful player. You're welcome, honey, she said. Now let's see if we can beat the crowds out of here. You two need a good sleep before your big day tomorrow. On the way home, Grace's phone buzzed. Is that Stella? Asked Mia. Grace checked her phone. Yep. Bing! Text message. Stella, what a game. I can't believe I missed it. Sad face. Grace, I know. Next time you have to come. Stella, sure. If Mr. and Mrs. Let's Ruin Our Daughter's Life let me out of the house. Grace laughed at the exaggeration, but she really did feel sorry for her friend. Stella's parents were both university professors and put a lot of pressure on her to do well academically. They often made her stay in to do homework while Mia and Grace hung out with their other friends on the weekends. And Stella's parents never came to any of the social activities that Grace's and Mia's parents organised. Text. Grace, I'll kidnap you. Stella, yes, do it. Stella Williams had started at Grace and Mia's primary school only 2 years earlier, but it felt as if they'd known each other forever. It hadn't taken them long to discover that Stella was a netball nerd, as Mia called her. She knew every detail, not only about the school competitions, but about Suncorp Super Netball and international leagues too. She always knew who was playing who, where, how much they won by, who played which game and how many goals they shot and missed. She was great at maths and statistics came naturally to her. She and Grace, who knew everything about how the game was played, could talk for hours. Stella had also bonded with Mia over their mutual crush on Grayson Cole, the lead singer of Friday at 5. Grace thought Grayson was pretty hot too, if she was honest, and the free friends were always sharing clips and links about their favourite band. Text message. Stella, still can't believe Caitlin Bassett shot at 99%. She's #goals. Grace, I know, and Shani had 6 intercepts. Let me guess, you and Stella are discussing stats and who shot the most goals and who took the most intercepts and how many more turnovers the other team had and who should have had more rebounds and blah, 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 Mia joked. Just the shooting percentages and intercepts, actually, Grace replied sarcastically. Although Mia loved netball, she just liked to play rather than talk about it every minute of the day. Remind her we're meeting at your place tomorrow, said Mia, leaning over Grace's shoulder to peer at Stella's messages, giggling at how accurate she had been about the conversation between her two netball nerd friends. Tomorrow was their first day of high school. Mia hadn't stopped talking about it all holidays. She claimed she'd been waiting for high school her whole life and she was always complaining about how other states started high school in year 7, but South Australia was so behind the times, not starting until year 8. She kept saying she felt as though she'd outgrown everyone at primary school. Grace hoped Mia didn't mean her and Stella. Stella didn't share Mia's excitement. Grace knew her friend was worried that her parents would put even more pressure on her at high school. As for Grace herself, she wasn't sure how she felt about going to a new school. She'd loved Oleander Primary. Apart from being captain of the netball team, she got along really well with her classmates and even her teachers. Although she was excited about the new adventure, Grace felt a little bit nervous about going to a bigger school with lots of older kids. She'd never admit that to Mia though. And she knew she would have a lot more competition on the court too. Grace and Angus's house was closest to Linwood High, so Stella and Mia agreed to meet there and walk to school with the twins. Grace was glad she would have her friends around on her first day. Text message. Grace, we can discuss the kidnapping plan tomorrow at Linwood. Stella, oh my God, don't remind me. I don't know how I'm going to survive high school. Survive? Said Mia, peering over Grace's shoulder to read the text. You guys just wait. This is going to be the greatest year ever. Chapter 2. Hurry up, Gus. I need to have a shower, Grace shouted as she banged on the bathroom door. 1 minute, Angus yelled back. I need to use it too, huffed Tyler, Grace and Angus's older brother. Go use Mum and Dad's shower. He pushed past Grace and began thumping repeatedly on the bathroom door. But their shower sucks. Plus all my stuff is in this one, Grace complained. So? Tyler replied. Just as Grace was about to argue back, the door opened and Angus strolled out, heading towards the kitchen. Within half a second, Tyler had bolted into the bathroom, shut and locked the door, leaving Grace standing outside with her mouth hanging open. Mum! Tyler locked me out of the bathroom and it was my turn, Grace yelled. Grow up, Grace, replied Tyler from behind the door. You don't need a dob. Grace rolled her eyes and made her way to her parents' bathroom, knowing there was no point trying to fight with Tyler, especially so early in the morning. Grace and Tyler had once been as close as she and Angus were now, but they had drifted apart over the last few years. Although he was only 2 years older and was starting year 10 this year, in her eyes they were a lifetime apart. Tyler seemed to spend all his time either practicing with his band or playing guitar in his bedroom, whereas she was always outside playing sport with Angus, who was equally sports crazy. Grace had always admired her big brother though, and she felt sad that they weren't as close anymore. Grace had loved sports ever since she could remember. Her dad was a footballer and an exercise junkie and had her throwing and catching almost before she could walk. Sport was in her blood and she couldn't have been happier about it. Grace and Angus had been so keen to do well at their high school sports trials, her in netball and him in Aussie rules, that they had set up a fitness training program in the summer holidays. Every day during their mini Olympics, as they called it, they would compete in a different sport, making sure they kept fit and strong over their break. They mostly did it for fun. They loved being outside, but they also wanted to make sure they were ready to go when trials came around. Angus wasn't the flashiest or most talented footballer, but what he lacked in skill and height, he definitely made up for in effort and in determination. Just as Grace was getting dressed for after her shower, her phone buzzed with a text message from Mia. Bzz, Mia, we're here. Classic Mia, Grace thought, rolling her eyes. Too lazy to even knock on the front door. I'm surprised she didn't just Snapchat me. She finally finished in the bathroom and yelled out to Angus that it was time to leave. Want to walk with us? Grace asked Tyler as she passed the kitchen. He was eating toast in what seemed like slow motion. Yeah, I'm going to go with no, Tyler replied sarcastically, clearly not impressed by the thought of walking through the school gates with his two younger siblings. That would be total social suicide, Angus joked as he ran into the kitchen and grabbed his lunchbox. He was happy to walk with Grace and her friends, as Mia and Stella were like sisters to him and they all got along well. Plus, it was definitely better than the other option, being dropped off by his mum in her minivan. Grace and Angus left the house, leaving their grumpy older brother to be late by himself. Okay, this is it, Gracie. Our lives are about to change forever, Mia announced dramatically as soon as the twins came outside. Was that lip gloss on Mia's lips? Wow, we are so different, Grace thought to herself. Mia focused a lot more on her appearance than her best friends did. She always read fashion magazines and knew which clothes and accessories to buy when they went shopping. She'd obviously got better at applying makeup in the holidays too. Grace, on the other hand, didn't even know the difference between mascara and eyeliner, and she couldn't care less. I'm not so sure if that's a good thing. I liked my old life, Grace replied. Come on, Gracie, lighten up. Look at you. All the guys will be drooling over your ridiculously long and tan legs. Grace laughed, but the truth was she didn't spend a lot of time thinking or caring about her looks. All she worried about was being tall enough to beat her opponent for the ball. Oh yeah, Angus mocked. The boys won't be able to stay away from me with my perfectly toned calf muscles and luscious locks. He used the voice he always put on when he imitated Mia. He attempted, and failed, to twirl his short, mousy brown hair around his finger. Grace couldn't help but laugh at her brother, but gave him a shove for Mia's benefit. Mia just rolled her eyes, ignoring Angus's teasing like she had for so many years before. I don't care about boys, I just want to make sure I get in the team, said Grace. Ugh, you're so frustrating, Gracie. If I looked like you, I would spend a bit less time worrying about netball and a bit more time thinking about dating, Mia said, grinning. Mia liked to talk about boys all the time, but Grace and Stella both knew it was all a bit of an act. The truth was, Mia had barely ever spoken to the boys at their primary school. Growing up with two sisters meant Mia didn't speak boy very well, but now she was pretending she was an expert when it came to the opposite sex. Mia, who cares about what boys think of you, said Grace. I care, replied Mia. Well, I'm a boy and I think you're being pretty annoying and gross right now, teased Angus. Will you guys stop? Stella complained. You know I'm already nervous. I need you to have my back today. It's all going to be okay, Stell, Grace reassured her. You're smarter than you know. As they walked through the school gates, their conversation stopped. It's so much bigger than I remember, said Grace. Although she'd attended the orientation day, she couldn't remember half the names of the buildings. She wondered how she'd ever find her way to the right classrooms. Tell me about it, said Stella with a horrified look on her face. The bell rang and they made their way to the quadrangle for their first assembly. Welcome everyone to the start of the new school year, said Principal Reynolds, silencing the crowd. This is always my favourite time of the year as we get to see so many new faces and welcome them into our community. Boring, whispered Mia into Grace's ear. Shh, I'm trying to listen, hissed Grace. Mia rolled her eyes and took her phone out of her pocket and scrolled through Instagram, liking every second photo. Grace tried to ignore her friend, wanting to take in as much information about her new school as she could. She wondered if there would be an announcement about the upcoming netball trials. It was as if she had a sixth sense, because the next speaker was the school's sports coordinator. Grace waited patiently as Mrs. McDonald spoke about the school's proud sporting history and how Linwood will continue to lead the way in sporting performance. Finally, Mrs. McDonald came to the news about the trials. We have a reputation to uphold here at Linwood as a specialist sporting school, which is why we'll be forming teams and starting trials as soon as possible. All team trials will be held this week. Adrenaline rushed through Grace's veins. She thought she'd have to wait weeks to try out, but the netball team trials are on Friday. She was so excited she could barely sit still. After assembly, the morning was spent getting their homerooms and lockers organised. Each new student was given an iPad loaded with their timetable and a map of the school. Mia was disappointed to hear that iPads could only be used for schoolwork and not for taking photos or scrolling through social media. I don't see how they can stop me taking a selfie, Mia joked as she posed in front of the iPad's camera. Grace and Stella looked at each other and laughed at their self-obsessed friend. That afternoon, Grace, despite having a high-tech map, got lost on the way to her maths class. She'd told Mia and Stella to go ahead without her as she quickly went to the bathroom, but she soon regretted her decision when she found herself in desperate need of Stella's expert map reading skills. Grace went up and down the same corridor 3 times, getting more and more frustrated by the minute. It was her only proper class for the day and she was now probably going to miss it. "Don't worry, everyone gets lost on their first day," someone said behind her. Grace turned around to see Sebastian King standing in front of her. Sebastian was Tyler's best friend and the lead singer in his band. When Grace and Sebastian had been younger, they'd got along quite well, often playing marks up in the backyard, but those days were long gone. Nowadays, he mostly ignored Grace when he was over at the Parkers, heading straight for Tyler's room or the garage. The main thing Grace remembered about Sebastian lately was that he had braces and always seemed to have food stuck in them. Ooh. "I've literally walked up and down this hallway 3 times, but I can't find 24B, said Grace, ignoring the fact that she hadn't spoken to Sebastian in what felt like years. The notorious 24B. You'd think it would be next to room 24A and before room 25, but nothing is ever that simple at Linwood. It's around the corner, second door on the right, Sebastian offered. "I wish someone had told me that before I spent half an hour looking for it. Everyone seems to have got the memo except me. Thanks, Seb." "So, how's your first day going?" Sebastian asked before Grace could walk away. Okay, I guess. You know, as good as first days can be when you spend half of the day getting lost," Grace replied. As they spoke, Mia came racing up to Grace. "Where have you been? Mrs. Adams sent me out to find you. Hurry, let's..." Mia's voice trailed away when she noticed Sebastian. "I better get going," said Sebastian. "I guess I'll see you around, Grace. Have a good one." Sebastian flashed Grace a big, toothy grin. Grace wondered when he'd got his braces off. They'd certainly done a good job. His smile now looked fit for a toothpaste commercial. "You too, Seb." Grace turned towards the classroom, but Mia grabbed her arm and held her back for a moment. "Please tell me I'm dreaming and you were not just talking to the Sebastian King," she whispered urgently. "What's going on? I need a full rundown." "What are you talking about?" Grace asked. "It's just Seb." "What do you mean, just Seb?" "Jeez, Gracie, you're a dark horse. Sebastian King is totally the hottest guy at Linwood. Do you know how many guys want to go out on a date with him?" Grace looked at her best friend and shook her head. "Who, Mia? He's like my brother. Don't you remember how annoying he was when we were kids?" "Yeah, but he's not your brother," said Mia with a sly smile, "and he didn't seem so annoying just then. He was too busy flirting with you to even say hello to me. Boy, these last few years have treated him well," Mia said, pretending to swoon. "He was just being nice," Grace practically shouted, wanting the conversation to end. She began to walk off in the direction Seb had pointed her, but Grace could tell Mia was not happy with that answer. "I don't believe that for a second, and neither do you. Sebastian's notorious. Even the teachers love him. I've heard he's always allowed to get away with pretty much anything. How could anyone resist that smile, right?" Grace rolled her eyes, wondering where Mia seemed to be getting this inside information from. "Come on, aren't you supposed to be taking me to class?" Okay, but we're going to need to talk about this later, and you're going to tell me all the details," said Mia, grinning. The end of chapter 2. Well, we've got to the end of chapter 2 and there's still lots to come in Grace on the Court. We obviously have her trying out for the school netball team. We then follow the rest of her season. There's also a bit of drama that happens with Sebastian and maybe a few other girls in the team as well. We also have the introduction of a Friday at 5 competition where the girls have to try and win tickets to that game. So lots to come. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but if you do want to read it, you can head to my website, www.maddyproud.com, and I can even send you a signed copy. Otherwise, you can head to all good bookstores, I say, because they should have it in stock. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you finish this one and you like this one, then there's also Grace back on court, and I'm working on a third as well. So thank you so much for listening to my campfire story. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you soon. Bye.